Hey YouTube, Mark Kaufman here, and today I have a little bit of a different video for all of you. Today I am going to be restoring this watch. I have done a lot of knife restoration videos, but I thought it was about time that I did a watch restoration. Now there's a lot of those going around on YouTube and they seem to be very popular, but for me, I haven't shown you guys what I deal with every day. Now this is a Wenger watch. This is produced by Wenger, the maker of the Swiss Army knife, and that is a Wenger Swiss Army knife. But this one here I picked up for $20 on eBay. It's in a little bit of rough shape. It has its original strap, but not much of it, and the crystal is really scratched up. You can see it there. It's got a lot of scratches. You can barely see the time, barely, but case is in pretty good shape, but I will be also polishing that. I am also going to be doing a movement upgrade on this. Now, currently it's running, and it's running on a Ronda 515 caliber movement, and I'm going to be giving that movement a little bit of an upgrade in this video as well. So I'm going to also be replacing this crystal, polishing the case, replacing the band, replacing the gaskets, and then we will have a pretty much brand new watch on our hands. So let's get into it. Okay, so here we go. We're getting started here. I've already loosened up the case back. It's relatively easy to get this thing opened after you do that. And right now I am not wearing gloves because I haven't really cleaned the watch up. I haven't done anything to it, so I'm not really concerned about my oils off of my fingers getting in the watch movement or anything like that. All of that will be remedied at the very end, and I will be wearing gloves for the end of this video just to keep the oils off of my hands from touching the movement, touching the dial, touching the crystal. So right now I am releasing the yoke of the watch movement, and that will release the crown, and I've gotten that out. I'm going to take the movement holder out, and the movement holder unfortunately is plastic, but you know, it's a relatively inexpensive watch, and here's the movement. As you can see, the crystal, and not the crystal, the dial and the hands are in pristine condition. It's just usually with these kinds of things, the crystal really makes the watch look worse than it really is. And all you have to do is change the crystal and get it cleaned up. So next step that I'm going to do is get the band off, and I'm going to disassemble the case and get it ready for polishing. Before I get it ready for polishing, I have to get the crystal out, so I'm going to use this crystal press. Next step would be to take measurements of the crystal and get that ordered. You want to take the width and the height of the crystal, and then you can get that ordered. These crystals are relatively cheap, and I was able to get 2 for about $8. Now here I am getting ready to take the dial off of the movement, and the movement actually has 2 access points, and that's actually where the dial feet are. So you just take a screwdriver and lightly pry, and I mean very lightly pry up the movement, and you will remove the dial from the movement. Now you have to be very careful while doing this because you can break the dial feet, and sometimes depending on the history of the watch, people will actually glue the dial in place, so you never know with a pre-owned watch. I'm actually going to be upgrading this movement to a higher caliber Ronda movement. This is actually a gold-plated movement that has jewels in it, and right now I am just advancing the hours and minutes in order to pass over midnight. I am setting it at midnight, so then when I set the dial in place, I can just place the hands on and everything will be lined up as it should be, so it will keep and tell accurate time. Now, placing the dial on the movement can be very tricky, not only because you want to be careful not to break the dial feet, but you don't want to bend the dial feet in any direction, because if you do, the dial will actually run against the hour wheel, and then it will actually slow the watch down depending on how badly you bend it. Also, you want to be very careful not to scratch the dial when you're actually pressing it down, so I'm actually using some of the foam that comes in a new movement package from a manufacturer. So this foam actually is very soft and it doesn't damage the dial. Now, at this step, I have placed the hands on the dial and I'm just checking to see if everything lines up as it should. I bought a new crystal and new gasket, and the gasket is made out of a special plastic that is acid resistant, water resistant, and it is resistant to heat and low temperatures. So it should last a long time and be able to keep this watch somewhat water resistant, at least to 100 meters. Since I am upgrading this watch, I am going to have to switch out the stem. Now, the stem is the part that goes into the movement so you can change the hours and the minutes and the date. Now, this stem has to be cut down to size, and I've already done that here, but I am placing a little bit of Loctite, and then I will install the crown. Now, you don't usually have to use Loctite, but I like to, because it's going to guarantee that this crown's not going to go anywhere. Now, I wasn't really able to get a new crown for this watch, especially since it's probably the cost of what I paid for the watch. So I am not going to be replacing the crown. The old one is just fine. Here I am going to be installing the stem, but before I do that, it is important to add a little bit of silicone grease onto the case tube. The case tube is the access point where the crown meets the case, and adding just a little bit of silicone grease can increase the water resistancy, and it will also lubricate the gasket that is inside the crown. Now, this yellow spongy looking thing is actually a gasket lubricator. And in this, I have a ton of silicone grease coating the sponge, and all this is doing is it is coating the gasket with a little bit of silicone grease. This is going to lubricate the gasket, but it's also going to alleviate the friction of when I close the case back onto the watch. Here's my watch press. This is going to allow me to close the watch and make sure it has a very secure and tight seal. But this also allows me to open very stubborn watches. Sometimes I get a watch that I cannot even open with my hands. So this device makes it very easy to open up those very stubborn watches. And finally, we are at the last step here. I am just installing and pressing in the bezel, and I'm using the same device I used to press in the crystal. Now, I think you would agree with me that the band this watch came with was pretty much shot. So I looked in the stack or supply of bands that I have for all my other watches, and I actually found this Victorinox leather strap, and I felt it was fitting that a Wenger watch would have a Victorinox strap on it, so I am going to install that onto this piece. It is a 22mm strap, so it will fit just fine on this watch, and I actually think it really fits that aviator or military look of this watch just fine. And there you guys go. That is it. Completely restored and ready to go. I think the movement upgrade is going to be a great addition to this thing. And I skipped a few steps. I usually have a few extra things I do to a watch like this, but this is going to be something I'm going to wear, and it wasn't a customer's watch, so I just felt those steps weren't necessary. But man, I have to say, it looks a lot better. Now, it's kind of funny, I ended up putting it on a Victorinox strap, but hey, that's fine. They're both the same company. And you know what? After all of that hard work, I think I'm going to wear it. So let's see what it looks like on the wrist here. And there we go. Man, that looks fantastic. Came out great. So thank you guys again for joining me on my YouTube channel, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit different, and it's something maybe some of you have never been exposed to, but I hope you guys enjoyed it, and till the next one, I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.